India seemed strange, I thought. India is strange. Strange kya baba? Ajeeb hai. India ajeeb hai. But after maybe 6 months, a little 8 months, I was studying, I wanted to learn Hindi. So after 8 months, I could speak a little Hindi, thora Hindi bol sakta tha. And then I talked to people, and I found people were friendly. People wanted to talk to me in English, or they just wanted to talk to me. Hindi, kabhi kabhi. Many times people came and they said, "Come, have chai. Come to my house, have chai." Indian people were kind and hospitable. They often wanted to give me food. And I began to think about Indian culture as a very good culture. And it's true. And when I was invited, when I came to people's house, see, look at that. I said chai, and they brought me chai. See, I'm very happy. And I saw that Indian families were very close. Big families. People in Indian families help each other always. They always help each other. And I started to think Indian families are very good, maybe better than American families. Indian families, and after some time I began to think the Indian families are maybe some of the best families in the world. Good family structure. Indian families stay together. Indian families support each other. There's always a few people, but mostly Indian families are very good. And I began to think about Indian culture as being very good. India has good culture, and it is interesting. In Delhi, there is a lot of history. Oh, sorry, itihas.
Yes.
And there are forts and old masjids and temples and much history. And when I thought about that, in America, there are 250 years of history only. Sirf 250 saal history. Itihas hai. But in India, how much history is there? There is thousands of years of history.
BC, we have a lot of Noah born.
BC history, right. I live in Benares, and there's a lot of history, very old history in Benares. And so that's very interesting. Lots of culture.
There is some busting. No problem.
Maybe I can just...
Yes, you have to just hold it from here. Yes, from here. Okay.
Okay. Hold it very
Yes,
gently.
not touch here.
Oh, don't touch that.
Okay, yes.
I see.
It's very delicate.
I am afraid. So I began to like Indian culture very much. When I came to India, I wanted to learn about Indian culture because my mother was born in India. India mein paida hua tha. And so, and my nan and nani lived in India for 40 years. Well, my nana lived in India for 40 years. My nani died before that time. My nana is buried in Punjab, and my nani died in 1938, and she's buried in Pakistan. But it was India. That 1938, Pakistan was India. And my mother was born in 1926, also in Pakistan, Taxila, Pakistan. But all of that was India then. And so, in a little way, I think of myself as being Hindustani. And so I'm very interested in India, Indian culture, and
Can I hold it?
no, it's
Can I
fine.
hold it? No problem.
My water hot.
No problem. I have no problem. Let's speak.
And so I think of myself as being a little bit Indian, and I want to learn about Indian culture and Indian people. And I teach English because my students are my teachers. They teach me about India, and I can teach them English. And so I very much enjoy teaching English. I have a school in Benares, an English institute in Benares, and usually maybe 75 students, sometimes a little more, sometimes less, but and I love to teach English, and I love to talk with people. And I think the best way to learn English is to talk. You have to talk to people. And many times people ask me, how do you learn to not hesitate? Stop your hesitation in English. How do you speak better English? And the best and only way is to speak English. You have to speak and talk. What happens is we have to learn to think in English. Now maybe you know 4,000 English words, maybe 3,000. But what's important is how many English words can you think in? So if I say situation, do you translate to Hindi?
Yes.
Or do you have a picture in your mind about situation? And if you don't have a picture, if you translate to Hindi, then you don't think with that word. But if you say that word, if you say situation, and you hear me say situation, and we talk, and I use that word, you use that word 20 times. Situation, situation, situation. After 20 times, you begin to think in that word. The speaking part of your brain begins to know the word situation. And that's the only way to learn English. You have to speak a lot. Talk. If you have a friend who speaks English, talk to them in English. If your parents talk in English, talk to your parents. It is important. See, your arm is tired now. So by practicing, then your English will get better. It always works. And as you think in English, then it becomes easy. When you hear an Ingresi, foreigner, Videshi, speaking in English, then you will understand them easily if you continue to speak in English, because you think in English words. It takes time.
No, my students, I think most of the students are capable of understanding English. If you speak English very fast, they are able to understand.
Yes.
Okay, I am very happy and I am fortunate to have such type of students.
Excellent students.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell something that how did you connect to me? And how did you?
Yes, sir. Yes.
It was a long time ago, actually. So that was like 4 years ago maybe, 4.5 years ago. So Tassif Sir was a student a long time ago at an English institute in Delhi called the Dynamic Institute. And you were there, how long were you at that institute?
I have been for 1 year.
1 year there, studying English, and he left. I heard from the director at the time, Mr. Long, that Tassif was an excellent English student. And so,
No problem, no problem.
So,
they are guardians. They are
that's very good.
guardians.
Nice. So he had a good reputation, and after you returned back to Bihar, to Purnia, and started an English school, you were still friends with Mr. Long. And maybe 1 year after you left, then I came to Delhi, or I began to teach English at Dynamic. And after 1 year, I became the manager of Dynamic English School, which is a pretty big school now. Last 4 months ago, they finally reached 500 students. It's quite big right now.
Yes.
So for maybe 3.5 years, I was the manager at Dynamic English School. And quite often, then Tassif Sir and I would call and we would talk. And sometimes for class, we would do a video Skype, and students would see me. Sometimes it didn't work well. Sometimes the internet was bad, and we didn't get a good connection. But I would talk to your students sometimes, and so we became good friends. We talked a lot, but I never came to Bihar. This is the first time that I have been to Bihar. So, and actually, it's the first time that we have actually met in person. So I was very happy when I met him this morning at the railway station. So that was really fun and nice.
I'm sorry. I also asked you that how many words or how many sentences and how am I be beneficial for you in learning Hindi? Because
It's true. I didn't talk about that.
yes.
Yes, and this is also on Skype video calls, we would talk and he would teach me Hindi.